of the San Francisco Ethics Commission do a roll call. Vice Chair Ambrose.
Present.
Commissioner Lee.
Here.
Commissioner Smith.
Present.
Yeah, unfortunately, our newest commissioner, Commissioner Gray, has a scheduling conflict and sends his regrets and is not able to be here. But we hope that he'll be able to join us as the newest member of the commission at our next meeting. So I'd like to move to agenda item number 2, which is public comment on matters appearing or not appearing on the agenda. Invite public comment at this time. No public comment. Oh my goodness. Okay, there being no public comment, we'll move on to agenda item number 3, which is the consent calendar. So we have 3 items on the consent calendar today. One is the draft minutes, for the Ethics Commission's May 29, 2019 regular meeting. Second is the proposed stipulation, decision, and order in the matter of Jane Kim and Jane Kim for Supervisor 2014, San Francisco Ethics Commission complaint number 28-151015. And lastly, the proposed stipulation, decision, and order in the matter of Ian Kalin for School Board 2016, San Francisco Ethics Commission complaint number 1718-066. I'll call for public comment in a moment. Just wanted to note, though, that the consent calendar items, the 2 stipulations, they do raise issues that I think would be informative and be helpful for us to keep in mind to my fellow commissioners as we discuss agenda item number 6. They deal with issues of incumbency and the use of city resources as well as the use of personal and personal funds as well as campaign funds. And I think that will be helpful to bear those things in mind as we consider what would be enforcement priorities for the commission going forward. And so would now call for public comment on any and all of the consent calendar items, unless there's any comment from the commissioners before. Is that right? Okay, so I would move to approve consent calendar items listed number 3, 4, and 5. There's a second from Vice Chair Ambrose. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the motion is passed unanimously. Agenda item number 6 is a discussion and possible action on enforcement process improvements review, and I would like to continue this item to July 2019 meeting because Commissioner Gray is not in attendance today, and as a full commission, I think that we would benefit from having his input and provide the opportunity for us to discuss this important topic all together. So unless there's any objection, I would like to hold this matter over to the next month.
I think that's appropriate and agree with that.
Okay, great. So we will hold this over to next month. Agenda item number, public comment on agenda item number 6. Okay. Agenda item number 7, discussion of the monthly staff policy report.
Thank you, Chair Chu and Commissioners. Pat Ford, Senior Policy Analyst. The update for this month are items that you've all seen before, but I do have a few updates to share. The review of the public financing program. As you know, at the last meeting, you approved an ordinance to make several changes to that program. Working together with Deputy City Attorney Shen, we sent the final version of that ordinance over to the Board of Supervisors. It sat in City Hall for 30 days on a 30-day hold. And since this memo was written, it's now been assigned to the Government Audit and Oversight Committee. So I know the memo says it's awaiting assignment, but since this went out, it's now at that committee. No hearing date yet on that, so I'll continue to track it, and we'll definitely keep you updated as soon as I know. The chair of that committee is Supervisor Gordon Marr, who is the sponsor of this ordinance. So I'm hoping that working with his office, we'll be able to make sure that this gets heard soon, although at this point, it's not clear that it will be heard before the board goes on recess for the month of August.
Mr. Ford, how long is that board recess in August? Do you know off the top of your head?
I want to say it's 4 weeks through Labor Day.
It's through Labor
Andrew
Day,
Jen
so
clarified.
that means then it's likely not to be heard until after Labor Day.
Yeah, I so far have not been able to get any confirmation that it will be heard before then.
And then if you could refresh our recollection on the process for hearing these matters in committee and getting it to the full board, how does that work? And if there's some rough timing so we could have some realistic expectations around when it might actually get signed by the mayor?
Sure. So the chair of the committee generally has discretion as to when items are called at committee. So I would guess that since the chair of the committee is the sponsor of the ordinance, that he would be interested in having it called sooner rather than later. Also, I believe Supervisor Marr is on the same page as us, that we're shooting to have this go into effect the first of the year, this coming New Year's. So with that in mind, I think they probably will want to schedule it soon. Once it is heard at committee, the committee hopefully would forward it to the full board with a positive recommendation. And then at that point, a similar process happens at the board where it needs to be scheduled. And then it has 2 readings at the board, it has to be approved twice.
So does the committee only meet once on it, or does it have to meet twice as well, similar to the board process?
The committee's just one time.
It's just one time?
They can, right, if they want to, make amendments or, have discussion and hear it multiple times, they could, but they only have to hear it once.
See, okay, and then could you keep us apprised at the next meeting or as this goes forward if they are contemplating any amendments, just so that we have, some early visibility into what they may be?
Yes, I will definitely
If
keep
any.
you updated.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So that's all on the ordinance. The regulations that were also approved at the last meeting are also sitting at City Hall right now. Those have to wait for 60 days before they become operative, so that any member of the Board of Supervisors can call a hearing if they see anything in the regulations that they want to discuss. So far, I have not heard anything along those lines. So usually, as it gets close to the 60-day window ending, I get in touch with the clerk of the board to see if anything has happened, and then as soon as that 60-day period expires, then start working towards implementing those. So we'd be looking at the end of July is when that 60-day period ends. So really no update on those right now. Then the third policy project is the e-filing of the Form 700. This again is helping other divisions that are leading this project on the labor negotiation and regulation aspects of this project. So again, this is to have all filers of the Form 700 Statement of Economic Interest file that form through an electronic system rather than submitting it in paper form to a filing officer in their departments. They would use the same electronic filing system that you and all other board commission members and elected officials use, and department heads as well. So right now, we're still in the planning phase to see what this project entails, what we need to do to make sure that it is done effectively and that everyone has the proper tools and training that they need to really make this effective. So in terms of policy's role in this project right now, I'm working with the Department of Human Resources to start basically notifying the bargaining units. We haven't gotten to the point where we actually meet with them yet, but right now just to notify them that this is a project that is in the pipeline so that they can start to become aware of what it is and decide whether or not they want to engage in any meet and confer about that. So far, nothing really to update you on other than we are beginning to work with DHR to notify the bargaining units.
How many bargaining units are there that you would have to work with?
I don't know. I think that's something that DHR is still determining right now.
Let's see. Okay. Yeah, so please do keep us updated as things progress, and good luck.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll definitely keep you updated. So outside of the actual policy project, some other things that I'm working on, continuing to monitor the Sunlight on Dark Money initiative, also sponsored by Supervisor Marr and a number of other supervisors. Just to recap, 4 supervisors can sign a piece of legislation and by doing so, place it on the ballot. So 5 supervisors signed this piece of legislation, which makes a few changes, or would make, I should say, a few changes to the Campaign and Governmental Conduct Code. In particular, it changes some disclaimer rules. It creates a couple of new filings for certain expenditures would require new filings. And it also would place a prohibition on contributions by certain people who have a financial interest in land use decisions to certain candidates. This initiative has had 3 different versions. The last version was submitted on the deadline to submit legislation to go on the ballot. So the final version came in last week. So I've been reviewing that. There are a number of somewhat significant changes from the last version. And the main reason that we're looking at that right now is that the Controller's Office works to create a financial impact estimate to basically be able to put on the voter information pamphlet how much the initiative would cost if it were approved. So they asked the department who would implement the ordinance what the financial cost would be to implement it. So that's something that we're working on right now to spec out the different forms that would need to be created, all the different resources, trainings, et cetera, and try to give the Controller's Office a cost estimate.
I'm sorry.
Commissioner,
I don't know.
Chair Ambrose?
Did I hear you correctly that they changed the text of the ordinance and resubmitted it? Is that?
That is correct. They did that twice.
So, and I assume now the deadline has passed, so this is the final version that will go on the ballot? And is it,
That's correct.
has it been through the ballot pamphlet committee? I've already forgotten what they're called now.
No, the ballot simplification.
Yes,
committee,
thank you
no,
very much.
It hasn't.
So we don't know yet how they've written up the statement for the ballot about the measure.
No, we haven't seen that, and it also hasn't had the hearing that measures have to have when supervisors vote to put it on the ballot.
And the deadline for that is before or after the board's recess?
I would defer to Andrew's before the
I
recess.
think it's before.
Okay, so in July, there'll be a hearing.
Right. But as you mentioned, the deadline to make any changes to that ordinance has passed. So my
the-
understanding is
the
they can
pro
either,
forma take it off, or
they could take it off.
but they
They
can't
could not
change
change it.
Uh-huh. But then, so the comments, the thing I was getting at, the comments that you're going to prepare, you're not bringing them back to the commission. This is going to be a staff comment at the board hearing.
Yes, because those comments will need to be in before the next meeting.
Okay, all right.
And then from a financial standpoint, in terms of the budget impact for the commission, because new forms will be created that the commission will have to develop and implement, since that money is not in our budget for the upcoming year, if this is approved by the voters in the November election, what is the effective date? And then how, since we don't have this budgeted, would those costs be covered if we would have to go forward and implement something?
So as far as the effective date goes, I think that it's 30 days after the results of the election are certified, if I recall correctly. 10 days.
Yeah.
Andrew
10
clarified 10 days after the results are certified. So it'd be roughly end of year, or before the end of the year. And as to costs, implementation, how that's absorbed into the department's budget, I would like to defer that question to the executive director.
If there's no money allocated, we would have to absorb it, yes.
We'd have to absorb it.
Excuse me, just to be clear, we would have to absorb it with our existing budget, yes.
So at the next meeting, if you have some estimates in terms of what it's going to cost, that would be very helpful. And I mean, there's Deputy City Attorney Shen, although it's certified as in effect by the by operation of law and the passage of time following an election, assuming it's approved, if there's a ramp-up time in order to develop forms and code the forms and test and implement them as a practical matter, what is the legal posture of the commission if we don't have the budget for it and, taking resources away, there's a process that we need to go through to determine if we're going to do this, what are we not going to do? Where does that leave us from a liability standpoint?
I guess a couple responses to that. So in terms of any additional need for funding that the commission may need do this legislation, like any other department, the Ethics Commission could approach the Board of Supervisors for a supplemental appropriation. In terms of sort of ramp-up time and sort of implementation time, the forms that Pat mentioned that will need to be developed and implemented and rolled out, it's up to the commission as to how it wants to approach that issue. It could wait until they know for sure that the voters have approved the measure. It could start that prior to the election itself and get everything ready to go on day one. I would defer to the commission and the staff on exactly what is the best route there. And if you don't mind, I would like to come back to some of the timing issues that Commissioner Ambrose mentioned. So as Commissioner Ambrose highlighted, the July meeting is delayed next month until the very end of the month, July 31st. And so at that point, the requisite board hearing on the measure would have already been held and filed. The ballot simplification committee will likely be done, or it could be right in the middle of the process of adopting a digest for this measure. And so that's a little difficult, given that we're not going to have a commission meeting for a while. But the commission could, if it wishes to do so, delegate one of its members to follow up on both fronts on behalf of the commission, just so we don't have to schedule a special meeting or do other sort of logistical gymnastics to address those issues. But that's up to the discretion of the commission. I'm sure the staff can already do what they need, but if the commission does want to follow up and assist staff in that matter, it's up to the commission.
Thank you. That's very helpful. Commissioner Ambrose, yes?
I'm sorry, just one more question. There's no obligation that the commission comment. I mean, in fact, I'm more concerned about the other side of it, that because it is a independent legislative initiative, we have to be very careful about how we weigh in on the subject matter. And so, am I wrong? There's no action that the commission needs to take on the ballot simplification or in what would be a purely factual cost analysis of the implementation of what's been proposed. So we wouldn't need to bring it to the commission before it goes to the ballot.
Right. Of course, that's absolutely correct. The commission is not obligated to take any of those steps or be involved in the process, as it were. Normally, with respect to any pending ballot measure, the Ethics Commission, like any other city agency, needs to be relatively impartial whenever it speaks on the topic. Mm-hmm. It can provide facts, it can provide basic background, but certainly the commission can never take a position on a ballot measure. Mm-hmm. You may recall that a few years ago, the Ethics Commission in consecutive years, put a couple of ballot measures on regarding lobbyists in 2015 and 2016, I believe, off the top of my head. The first regarding expenditures lobbyists, and then an additional one regarding essentially prohibiting contributions from lobbyists as well. So that was a little of a different situation because those were measures directly put on by the commission. Mm-hmm. So in that posture, this commission at that time was a little bit more kind of at the forefront. So the Ethics Commission, for example, for those measures, which they themselves put on the ballot, actually put in a proponent's argument, for example, in the voter information pamphlet. Here, since it's a forced soups measure and not a measure that we are putting on as a body, mm-hmm. obviously a pretty different situation. So I think you're right, Commissioner Ambrose. The commission would probably be more sort of about, clarifying facts, providing background, that sorts of things, which I believe the staff could absolutely handle. But I just did want to raise for the commission, given the sort of gap in meetings, mm-hmm. that if they want a member to sort of more closely follow it, that would be an option for the body.
I would agree with Commissioner Ambrose. I want to make sure that the digest ensures the accuracy of the facts and the law, but also I think that at some point, certainly earlier iterations had references to the Ethics Commission, and I don't know if it was in the ordinance itself or in the descriptors of it, but making sure that the characterization of the Ethics Commission, what it did or did not approve at previous meetings is correct. And not misstated. So, Commissioner Ambrose, if there's any desire of either of the commissioners to work with staff on this.
Perfectly happy to have you as chair be our eyes and ears. Obviously, the commission could comment or correct the record even if something happened afterwards. So, but I don't know that we need to take official action as chair. You already have under the rules that responsibility to represent the commission on matters. So
She'll go forth and do my best. But Mr. Ford, I'll work with you as appropriate on this going forward, and just let me know the timing in terms of the deadlines and making sure that we sync up.
Yep, I will keep you in the loop on all of our analysis and any communications we have going forward on this. So I don't really have any other updates. Those are the big ticket items for right now. Glad to answer any questions about these or general items that you might have. Otherwise, I will.
Yeah, just, excuse me, as a general item for an upcoming meeting, perhaps in August, I think it would be timely with the onboarding of Commissioner Gray and Commissioner Smith just joining us, that we could have a deeper policy dive in terms of exploring not just the items that are here before us today, but also other things that we had previously considered as a commission, and can go through what we've been calling the policy prioritization plan. And we can do, I think we've done this on a quarterly basis, but looking at the overall portfolio of potential projects. It's been some time, so I think it would be a good time to do a grounding in terms of all that's come before and, the matters before us now, and we can have a robust discussion as a full commission on where to go in the future, I think both on a short, medium, and long term.
Yep, I'd be glad to do that. I think the timing would be good because, as you can see, a lot of these projects are kind of in their later stages right now. The regulations that you approved, hopefully 60 days will pass and nothing will happen, meaning they will go into effect, and I can work with the other staff to implement those and get them all integrated into our materials. Likewise with the ordinance, hopefully the public financing ordinance will move along, and by that time in August, have a better sense, and hopefully there won't be much ahead to do in terms of staff work. Likewise with the Form 700 project, I'm hoping that by August, we will have made more progress with the bargaining unit meetings. And we'll have a better sense of kind of how that's going to look in the future. So I think it'll be a really good time to know kind of what the bandwidth will be on the policy front.
Great, so we'll tee that up for August then.
Yeah,
and then just to go back to the public financing ordinance, that once the full board hears it, in the event that they don't adopt what we sent over and make changes, it would come back to us, and we would need to consider it again and vote by supermajority to either to approve any changes that they make.
Correct.
And then once that happens, if that happens, would it then go back through the same committee and hearing process at the board?
Andrew's nodding.
Oh my
He
goodness.
says yes.
Okay. All right. The wheels of government do move slowly sometimes, I guess, but unavoidable. Okay. Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Ford? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Public comment on agenda item number 7? No public comment. Okay. Agenda item number 8, the discussion of monthly staff enforcement report, including an update on various programmatic and operational highlights of the enforcement program's activities since the last monthly meeting.
Thank you, Chair Chu and Commissioners. Briefly, in the enforcement arena this month, I had occasion to visit the citywide consultants, the Department of Human Resources citywide consultants in their quarterly meeting, which took place in June. DHR had assigned for that month's meeting a consideration of secondary employment within the city and county. Secondary employment being when an employee of the city and county receives compensation from some outside activity. I do think that in the evolving economy, that our local tech has partially provided, that we have some occasion to reconsider what it means to receive compensation in some outside activity. But in general, the conversation turned on instances in which employees have, say, a second job, or they're engaged in some income deriving project outside of the city. So I attended that meeting with counterparts from the Controller's Office Whistleblower Program and the head of the City Attorney's Public Integrity Unit. And the three of us had occasion to describe for those consultants the kinds of obligations that arise for city employees who are seeking income in these external ways. So they, under the civil service rules, they have to disclose the existence of that secondary employment. They have to seek permission from their department to engage in that activity. In theory, the form by which they seek that permission then has to get forwarded on not to their internal HR, but to the Department of Human Resources, which likewise must sign off on that. And at every stage, those entities have to satisfy themselves that that secondary employment is not incompatible with their responsibilities as a city employee. And so we talked a little bit with these consultants about the kinds of ethics situations that might arise when city employees have secondary employment. One is not just that they have to file this form, but that it may create other disclosure obligations on a Form 700 if the affected city employee or city officer is required to file a Form 700 statement of economic interest. So they would have to disclose to the city that there is this outside financial interest, because that would enable us to evaluate potential conflicts that may arise in the course of that officer or employee's ordinary functioning. And then we talked a little bit about whether investigations may arise for individuals who have outside employment. And both the whistleblower program and the public integrity unit and our office could investigate whether somebody's outside employment materially impairs their ability to satisfy their obligations to the city and county. And there are a variety of ways that might happen. It could be that the second job entails excessive time demands. It could be that they're using city resources to advance their second job, their private interests. It could be that they are absenting themselves from work while claiming to have been at work so that they can operate the secondary employment. So we talked a little bit about the role that the departments might play, the role that human resources might play, and the possibility that even in the face of discipline, should a department wish to impose that discipline on an employee, the Ethics Commission could seek financial penalties, irrespective of whatever determinations the department itself might make. So I think it was a pretty robust conversation. I think all parties worry about secondary employment within the city and county. I think historically it's not been something that the departments have either adequately understood or adequately addressed. But as I say in the report, I think this signals a renewed commitment to trying to bring the city's workforce into compliance with that variety of obligations. So overall, I think it was a successful outreach effort by virtue of invitation through the Controller's Office Whistleblower Program. So an extension of the ongoing collaboration that we have with that office and with the Public Integrity Unit, these weekly meetings that I think are bearing fruit in terms of the ability of the Ethics Commission and these other accountability departments to work collaboratively to change the overall culture and landscape ethically within the city and county's workforce. I would note that the investigators, again, have fewer matters in preliminary review. They're down now to 45 from where we were a month ago at 57. The amount of time on average that it takes us as a division to get through those has bumped up some. We did not discuss today item 6, but item 6 noted one distinction in these numbers, which is that it takes on average 3 months to open an investigation. So the number that we see here, roughly 9 months on average, suggests that it takes us longer to dismiss complaints than it does to convert them into open investigations. And one obvious reason for that would be that a dismissal is a final agency determination, and it is possible that the preliminary investigation for dismissal might be longer than it is when we determine to open a matter, because we always want to make sure that we have checked all theories to ensure that we are not unduly dismissing something where there may have been some liability that we ought to have caught. We have a handful more matters under investigation. We're up to 93, so more than twice as many matters under investigation than waiting for our triage. But again, the amount of time that it takes investigators to get through those has either leveled off or begun to decline, coming in now at 14 and a half months.
Excuse me, Mr. Pierce.
Yeah.
On the preliminary review matters, there was some public comment that came in on agenda item number 6, which we were talking about next month, but I would just note for our discussion next month and also for your consideration as you think about this, the comment had suggested adopting the practice of using warning letters. And so would like to make sure that we include that as part of our discussion going forward, where it would be, I think that it's like an in-between, so you're not doing an outright dismissal, but it doesn't lead to a full-blown investigation either, and is it a good middle ground that I think is worth discussing and exploring the benefits of adopting practice.
Yeah, thank you for flagging that. I'm familiar with that public comment, and we can speak about it in greater depth at the next meeting. I would just note that at least one, and I think more of the ordinances under our jurisdiction indicate our ability to use warning letters as a tool of enforcement. I think the ability of the division to use warning letters is certainly implied in the charter. If we can seek penalties, I don't see any reason why we couldn't issue a warning letter in any instance, even if an ordinance were silent as to that. And I'm not sure that we need a regulation that would define our capacity to do so. I would add that we do in fact issue warning letters. I issued one just 2 weeks ago, but the public wouldn't be aware of those because we don't publicize them in the same way that we do stipulations. We can talk maybe and get advice from the city attorney's office about whether publicizing a warning letter would violate the confidentiality provisions in the charter, which state that all investigative documents prior to a finding of probable cause are to remain confidential. So to issue a warning letter on the heels of a dismissal would, of course, be prior to a determination of probable cause. It would reveal, for example, the existence of a complaint or the existence of an investigation, and it may be that under the laws of this jurisdiction, we're not able to publicize those warning letters. That having been said, it doesn't prevent us from using that tool and potentially from using it more often than we do currently.
Yeah, so Deputy City Attorney Shen, could you please work with Mr. Pierce and be able to provide clarity for us next month? That would be great.
Thanks. Let's see. The Commission's Fines Collection Officer continues to advance her sweep of unpaid late fees. She's conducting a wholesale audit of the Commission's campaign finance late fee program. She has finalizing another set of warning letters to delinquent filers, and I note that since the beginning of her efforts to collect unpaid fees, she has collected something like $7,000 in previously unpaid fees, and that's separate from fees that continue to come in as the result of an initial collection letter. That's specifically in response to warning letters that she has sent out to filers who prefer not to be referred to the Bureau of Delinquent Revenue. And then, so turning to the Bureau, unfortunately, there are not updates as to Mr. Jackson or, let's see, Ms. Norman. One update on Isabel Urbano is here. She resides and works in New York, and the Bureau has decided that we don't really have jurisdiction to sue somebody who resides in New York. Admittedly, it's been a while since I took civil procedure. I can't recall whether tag jurisdiction would enable us to bring a suit in California. But effectively, they sought our permission to refer that matter to an outside collections agency, and we gave that permission on the theory that that is the next best step.
So on that point, I noted that it has now been assigned to an outside collections agency. Is this an option for the Chris Jackson matters? Because I think the BDR has been trying to locate Mr. Jackson and his place of residence, employment, and additional assets for at least 3 years now. Certainly since I've been on the commission, this has been an item, and it has not progressed in any way, shape, or form from what I've seen. So is there another option here to do that?
Yeah, that's. I'll take it up with the Bureau. I don't know whether that option exists. I mean, my most recent communications with my contact there were that Mr. Jackson and Ms. Norman, as he put it, live off the grid. So maybe I think that might be to say that if they were to refer it to an outside collections agency, it's possible that that agency wouldn't be able to locate them either. So it may have less to do with who's trying to collect and whether it's possible to collect. But that's a fair question, and I'll follow up with them about that.
Thank you.
Right through the
Commissioner
chair.
Bruce, yes.
I'm assuming when you refer to an outside collection agency that they take a cut, that's how that works.
I expect so.
And I noticed this position that we have of a fines collection officer, which is great because obviously if somebody doesn't have the responsibility of chasing all those bits and pieces, then it's hard to, make that a priority. But do you also look at how much it costs to go after the money? Because a lot of times you can end up spending more money on staff time and collection agencies than the actual money that you're potentially are going to recover. So if you've been looking for $6,000 for 3 years, you might have
Longer, since it was 2013.
you might have already wasted more than that. So anyway, and I know it's the Bureau of Delinquent Revenue. I mean, they're a separate entity that probably you have to work order money to. Anyway, just something to think about.
Yeah.
We're happy to look at a rationale that, like every other debt collector in America, kind of a cost-benefit analysis.
Although I note that we did get a judgment in the second Chris Jackson matter.
Looks like you have a judgment in both.
Oh, I see, in both. Okay, yeah, all right.
Yeah, I defer to you on that.
No,
And the last one, though, if I can ask about
Yes.
the Lynette Sweet one, I got your note clarifying that the petitioner's request for bankruptcy was rejected. It's out of bankruptcy court. The civil suit that the city and county filed originally now is no longer stayed, and so that presumably is going to be calendared, and that's what the case conference was the reference before. When you say negotiations with debtor are ongoing, is that the city attorney's office who's negotiating that? Because under the charter, I don't know, do you have authority to negotiate settlement of litigation outside of the city attorney board of supervisors process? I would be surprised to learn that if we do.
I have had conversations with tax attorneys in the Bureau's office, and it may be that those tax attorneys are embedded within the Bureau, but that they otherwise belong to the city attorney's office, and that they are vested with full authority to seek settlements and suits that they file. But I see that deputy city attorneys.
Yeah, I don't know the particular civil suit. I mean, the tax attorneys handle tax assessor matters, and a lot of times there's a mixed bag of property tax payments and, say, like a water bill, and out of whatever interagency cooperation, because the tax assessor and their attorneys are separate under the charter from the departments and the city attorney's office. But in this instance, if this lawsuit was filed by the city and county of San Francisco was it was it only filed to collect a debt? Is that? Anyway, I'll let you.
Yeah, the Bureau filed it, so the Bureau's own attorneys are the ones who filed it. I mean, it's possible that that they named as the plaintiff the city and county, but it's effectively a suit that the Bureau itself has brought, and my understanding is that the suit is to reduce the commission's order to a judgment, and once it's a judgment, then it can be enforced against the debtor.
Okay. But again, so you're saying it's the Bureau of Delinquent Revenue that is handling the settlement negotiations?
And we are the client, effectively, so they are seeking our input into what that settlement might look like.
Okay, I'm just kind of curious because I've always thought of settlement as requiring
Board approval.
board approval and city attorney approval and government audit committee approval, et cetera. So
It's
I was
possible, yeah. It's possible I'm using the wrong word, that maybe it is not a settlement per se, but it's some kind of a mediated outcome that is not the kind of settlement that goes before the Board of Supervisors.
Okay, all right, just my
It's a great question.
stop. This is my own personal
Yeah.
education. Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, I'll seek additional clarification.
All right.
Yeah, I think with that, if there are other questions, I'm happy to field them.
Any other questions? Commissioner Lee?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a question regarding the secondary employment training. We have various level, various grades of employment in the city civil service system. So for the training and for the review and approval process, is there a different level of review based on the employee's responsibilities? So for instance, if you're in the management level, the scrutiny and the review ought to be much higher than someone at the entry level. Is that correct? So there's no one-size-fits-all.
I expect that's
review
true.
and approval.
Yeah, so on and off, I have worked with the Department of Human Resources on reviewing some of these secondary employment authorizations, and what you say, Commissioner Lee, is the general approach. The Department of Human Resources, in my experience, is much more circumspect with sort of higher level, sort of management level kinds of folks in terms of, does the additional employment, actually present a conflict of interest? Does the additional employment take up so much of their time that they actually can't carry out their city duties? Those kinds of inquiries, I think they're much more demanding, as you would expect of higher level folks, as opposed to maybe people who are sort of more, out front or, doing a little different kinds of things for the city. I would expect that they provide a little bit more leeway, but it is a process that does apply across the board, all throughout the organizational chart. But yeah, I think they do take, the situation into account.
Is there a dollar figure that triggers disclosure or anything at all? I mean, even if it's a one-time, say, a consultation during the year, anything that could be called additional compensation?
Yeah, Commissioner Smith, it's established in a civil service rule, this sort of whole secondary employment idea, and it does not provide for any dollar threshold. And so it's my understanding, and I don't want to speak too much for DHR, but it's my understanding that DHR, for example, would view someone who is kind of like a freelance consultant who may not have an ongoing gig but may have occasional clients as the kind of person who would still need to get this authorization.
Thank you.
And so, sorry, I don't mean to drag us further deeper into the rabbit hole, but would this be for any work that the city employee does, whether or not it's during city business hours, but on the weekend, so as long as it's compensated, but not volunteer work?
That's correct. It applies to any, certainly they would look into whether there's some actual interference during the regular workday. Of course, they would look to see whether the secondary employment would actually interfere with the 9 to 5 in the office duties of the person, but really does apply across the board. Because there's other issues that could be triggered by this kind of process. It could be a genuine conflict of interest issue. It could be a confidentiality issue. It's just a sort of process to allow the city to vet those potential concerns.
Got it. Thank you.
Let me just ask one
Oh,
more
yes,
question.
of course, Commissioner Lee.
So is it by a committee, a decision by committee, or the supervisor, the immediate supervisor of the individual applying for secondary appointment? Because on the federal government level, it's all by committee, so that there's true transparency and there's no subjectivity. There has to be done by a committee of 3 or whatever. So in this case, in the city's case, is it up to the supervisor to follow the rules?
Yeah,
Or-
so I can try to fill in a little bit. I hesitate to say too much more about the DHR process, and certainly we could always invite them to come to a meeting and speak about this issue if the commission so desires. But my general understanding of the form is that the employee's actual supervisor within his or her department initially signs off on the request, and from there is forwarded to kind of what we call central or main Department of Human Resources, which is kind of an actual separate department under the city, and there is considered by various staff level people. And I think the staff at DHR that reviews it kind of depends on the employee who's asking for the authorization. Sort of a request from a higher level person would probably go to a higher level of DHR for review, for example. But it's not quite the formal committee process that you mentioned that exists in the federal level. It's a little bit less, it's a little bit more flexible, I suppose.
If I may, Chair, to schedule a future presentation for us to better understand, because this cuts into both ethics, whistleblowing, and other issues
Sure.
the Commission is interested in.
Yeah, so
I would
Ms.
like to know more.
Yeah, so Mr. Bruce, could you schedule the appropriate person from HR to come and do a presentation and to have them specifically address the questions that Commissioner Lee has raised so far, and anything else that would be helpful, I think, for us to better understand the overall process and outcomes and transparency.
Yes, certainly.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Okay, public comment on agenda item number 8.
Yes, public comment. I have been coming here every month. I am a bargaining team member for SEIU 10-1. We have 52 workforce of the 32,000 public employees. I am responding to the items just discussed in here. You all know that anybody who make less than $120,000, it's called poor people. So the majority of public employees are poor people. So many of us have part-time jobs, full-time jobs, other than weekend jobs. I can tell you, I personally, some time ago, I have a part-time job because I have a family, okay? According to what I know, we have a contract. We means the city employee and the union had a contract with HR, and the HR require us to report. Unfortunately, management had a lot of side job. They're not reporting. A lot of things are targeted small potatoes, but not management staff. My name is Ellen Lee Zhao. I am a government employee. I am here to report and ask today to ask ethics commissions to restore law and order to protect San Francisco. You and I know Ethics Commission was created to stop government corruptions. We have many public employees came here many of the times, and I am here to follow up one thing. You as an individuals understand that you sign up for ethics commissions. I am telling you right now, as a government employee, as a mother, and as an employee brought different employees to file complaints with Ethics Commission. Ethics Commission department is useless. It wastes a lot of government money because they are not doing the thing. I came here and reported to you. I ran for mayor last year. I was not allowed to so many public forums that is happening in public buildings, libraries, recreational parks. I reported to Jeffrey right here, and he said nothing they can do. The problem is Ethics Commission, it's unaid to super PAC. San Francisco is lawless and no rule of law for many years. Democrats only. No matter what you say today, it's not a public form of government. We, the people, other parties have no control. That is include public employees. Anything that related to public and public employees must be addressed with HR, because HR and us have the agreement to meet and confer. But for you ethics commissions, talking things in here without the public employees on site, that is unethical. And I'm here to ask you to do your job before the people take actions. Because we came here and reported to you many, many times about ethics commission is not ethical at all. Thank you.
Thank you. Agenda item number 9, discussion of Executive Director's Report, an update of various programmatic and operational highlights of Ethics Commission staff activities since the Commission's last monthly meeting.
Thank you, Chair Chu. This month's report highlights of some ongoing operations. There's a quick note. Of course, we look forward to meeting with Commissioner Gray. We had an opportunity to meet with him in the office and provide introductory briefings into the Commission's operations and programs. And we look forward to working with him and when he is able to join the meeting next month as well. The budget update, the budget hearing was held on June the 12th, and Deputy Director Gayatri Taikandil and I were present to provide an overview. The Budget Committee had asked for specific information to be provided by all departments, and so we provided a slide deck with that information, which we've attached to this report. We have been in further conversation with the Mayor's office about specific funding that comes through a technical adjustment in the budget. So we may be having some of the items that were not funded through the FY20 budget may initially requested through the FY20 budget that we made may be covered with that. So we'll stay tuned and provide you with more information on that next month. But we think there might have been some additional items that were not initially covered in the line items. So I'm happy to report on that as soon as we know more things with some specificity and some finality.
That would be wonderful.
Oh, I also wanted to provide in this report on behalf of Gayatri and her team, the Engagement and Compliance Group, there has been a lot of progress on implementing the reporting disclosure requirements for the Anti-Corruption and Accountability Ordinance, or ACAO. As of this week, all forms are now live and available for people to use for filing. And I do really want to acknowledge the massive team effort in the office that took, led in part by Rachel Gage, who you don't see here because she's busy in the office, putting information together to help the public understand and filers understand what the forms are and how they can use them and where the information goes. It's been supported heavily by, obviously, our team in Stephen Massey's group, our electronic disclosure and data analysis folks, and our policy shop as well. So many, many hands have been shaping this, and we really appreciate that work. The work continues to evolve. Materials and guidance continues to be made available, but we're just pleased to see that we are able to have an online system for these forms that will accommodate the filings that are required under the law.
So, Executive Director Pelham, I'd like to ask at our next meeting if Rachel Gage could do a little presentation for us for all of our benefit, as well as the new commissioners. I'd love to see. I will go in and check the website myself, but I think that the public could see if we broadcast, and certainly we would have the benefit of hearing a live voiceover.
Terrific.
I think would be terrific.
Great. We'll schedule that. Also, we included information about the status of the public financing opt-ins or opt-outs for the November 2019 election. I've got that information provided to you. There are two candidates in the District 5, three candidates who opted to participate in the District 5 race, and two who agreed to participate in the three in the mayoral race. I will leave the chart to speak for itself. I'm obviously stumbling through it, but we do have the information and have been providing information to candidates as well as necessary. Data visualizations for the public financing applications, certification claims, those are all online now with Edda team having created the data visualizations for public financing. The data visualizations for campaign disclosure disclosure information will be online as it continues to come in the coming months. So we're officially fully in election 2019. I also provided some background on the audit status of various audit programs. As you may recall, we have again accessed external auditors to assist. They worked with us on the 2016 publicly financed candidates. We have them again assisting us this year with the 2018 audit cycle of the publicly financed candidates who are required to be audited pursuant to law. We have also 3 audits from the 2016 audit cycle that we're expecting to be finished in the next week or so. So we will then be fully in the 2018 cycle. In the 2018 cycle, just wanted to do a quick note that as we have in the last year or two, we have used an objective criteria method for selecting discretionary campaign audits, as we're allowed to do. The law requires mandatory audits for publicly financed candidates and allows discretionary or targeted or random audits of other committees that were active during the election. Historically, the Commission used a random process to select campaigns. Several years ago, we modified that approach because we saw that some of the committees that were not selected by random selection were fairly large committees, and we thought there was a great public interest in being able to audit a lot of the money that is running through the campaign cycle. So we did initiate it, as this report notes and links to, a way to pick through a standard objective that does not look to who the committee is that's being audited, but really looks to what are the kinds of criteria that we're looking to. So this year for the 2018 audits, we did that same practice, and part of this is to make sure that there is a public reporting on the practice that we use to select committees for discretionary audit. In this case, we have 11 committees from the 2018 cycle who were recipient committees active in the election in 2018 that were not controlled by a candidate and that reported spending more than $1 million on their campaigns. The data that a figure on chart 1 on page 9 of my executive director's report just gives you a sense of what kind of scope of money that covers. It is still capturing about 76% of the money, although it's only 14% of the committees that were active. So we're really trying to capture and get a sense about how committees are complying and reporting their activity through our campaign audits. So I just wanted to present that information as part of this report to take a little bit of a deeper dive into the audits that are ongoing and the status of audits. We are continuing to look at our audit program improvements as we finish these audits, and we look forward to providing more information to you about that, as we go forward. But that is something that's ongoing as well. And one last note, we also, as I noted in the 2017 report, we have been struggling to have the resources and focus to do the lobbying audits that are required. There is a requirement that I select one committee randomly, one lobbyist randomly to be audited each year. We have not done that. And we do not have a lobbying audit program to accommodate that requirement. So that is one of the things that now with our new principal program manager position in the audit division, we're devoting specific focused resources to developing the audit program for lobbying in the coming year, working also with the team that's now John Kim and others in the office to really look at the lobbying program and figure out what is a sensible and significant way to go about our lobbying audit program. And I think it's important that we report back to you as that develops as well, because we do need to make progress in that area. But I wanted to flag that is distinct from the campaign audits that we've been doing and trying to get through over the last year or so. I think with that, I'll just see if there are any questions or more information that you'd like. I'm happy to try and provide that to you.
Yes, on the lobbying audit question, do you anticipate that there will be enough resources to be able to conduct a lobbying, a randomly selected committee to audit in this current, well, not the current, but the upcoming fiscal year starting next month?
I'm always optimistic, and I'm afraid of being overly optimistic and under-delivering. What I can tell you is that we are expecting with our cycle of audits that we will be current and complete with our campaign finance audits by the end of this calendar year. So as we complete those, we're also going to be trying to establish what that lobbying audit program should look like. And it's quite likely that we could, by the end of fiscal year 20, have completed a lobbying audit. But I don't have a program in place yet, so I'm hesitant to be too optimistic that that's going to take effect. But we are going to be mapping out what that looks like, and that is a goal for the program for the coming year.
So, I mean, I know that we just finished the FY20 budgeting process, and it just got approved by the Board of Supervisors. But as I look ahead to 2020, we will be having 3 elections in March, in June, and in November. So there'll be even more audits to conduct as a result. So as we think about resources needed going forward, and it's always a very challenging financial environment, and that we have to make do with less. But as we consider, what our obligations are, that are to conduct these audits, and as the pace increases, like what would the staffing need to be in order to right-size the organization to be able to carry out our mandate, and what do we need to do in order to prepare for the conversation with the mayor and the Board of Supervisors to be able to get the resources that we need. So I'm happy to help in any way that I can to fight for the people and the dollars to be able to make this happen.
Thank you.
And then my second question goes back to the chart on page 2. That's just the public financing. Do you know, or could you tell us the last date to submit the qualifying requests? If you know that offhand. Oh, it's the 100 and.
I do not want to misstate that. Yeah, but we don't have that date in front of us, but I'm happy to get that information to you.
Yeah, if you could get that to us, just because last year we had a significant number of appeals from executive decisions, and then also want to make sure that all of the candidates who have opted to participate in the public financing program know and have clarity around what their deadlines are, and that so that we can avoid as much as possible any confusion or last-minute panic and emergencies.
Oh, yeah, these are tiny.
We have some very, very teeny font here. The best minds in the room trying to find the answer, but very small font.
Yeah, so last date.
So the last date to resubmit a qualifying request is Friday, September the 6th.
Okay.
August 27th.
Oh, excuse me. The last day to file a qualifying request. Hence the small font. August 27th. August 27th. We do, thankfully, we have this information on our website.
Okay.
In bigger font, in adjustable font.
So the last date to submit a qualifying request is August
27th, yes.
And the last date so then it would be 10 days after that is the final date to resubmit?
I think
Maybe better to,
yeah, if you could send us an email.
I just don't want them to say it wrong.
So why don't we do this, Director Pelham, if you could send us an email with laying out the deadlines just for our general knowledge, so we can.
I will certainly do
That
that.
would be good.
And again, for the benefit of the public or others who might be watching this, on our website under the Public Financing Program page, if you link to that page, we have the full information and the table, which will provide the correct information. But yes, it is August 27th is the last day to submit a matching or a claim. And then there is the last date to resubmit a qualifying request is Friday, September the 6th. So, but we have that information on the website, and we have communicated that with candidates as well. But thank you for the clarification and for the computer, Mr. Ford.
Thank you. Okay. Public comment on agenda item number 9.
My name is Ellen Li Zhao for the purpose of record. I've heard what you guys saying. I personally been through so much discrimination just because a public employee stood up and said the right thing and stood up for the truth. I have filed a complaint with ethics commissions about 6 candidates running for mayor. 3 of them did not complete the paperwork. It is on record. It's still not complete. The Form 410 was required but was never there. And I also filed the same complaint. I was told there's no personal check and no cashier check, no personal check to pay for the application fee. But Ethics Commission said it's okay. Election office says okay, but it's not okay to me. When I asked, I was told no, no, no. Now, I also find out the 6 of the candidates for November 5th election, 3 of them not qualified, and 4 of them, they are using cash. You're talking about thousands of dollars of cash and cashier check and personal check. I'm telling you, it's because I'm a victim. San Francisco has been running by one party only, Democrats only. I was a Democrat for many years until I changed party. I'm a proud Republican. That has nothing to do with the party. It has to do with the people who behind our city agenda. We have a lot of people working for the government. I am one of the government representatives for government employee. For the process that I'm going through with election office, I came here and reported to you. San Francisco has more than 75,000 voters. They're not supposed to be in the voters' roll because it's dead, and they're no longer living in the place. But why nobody is taking care of it? I'm here and ask for help. Ethics Commission was set up to help the public to qualify people and enforce the law. Ethics Commission continues to do a lot of things Ethics Commission staff wants to do, but not the law that it's required to do. I did not notice all this corruption that I'm going through with voting fraud, with Super PAC, with monoparty controlling San Francisco for 45 years. I did not know that we have no equity of public power. I did not know that Democrats for 45 years. I did not know that the political power has no people voice. Democrats only. That means we are lawless. We have no rule of law in San Francisco for 45 years. For the government, the mafia running the government, the government scam pay $4.16 million for Democrats only and continue to operate the same route of strategy with voting fraud and with unaccountability. I'm here to ask you to do your job as government employees and to carry what you sworn in. Thank you.
Thank you.
For public information, here's my, thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay. Agenda item number 10, discussion and possible action on items for future meetings. Any ideas from commissioners? No? Public comment on agenda item number 10? No? Agenda item number 11, additional opportunity for public comment on matters appearing or not appearing on the agenda pursuant to Ethics Commission Bylaws, Article 7, Section 2. Public comment?
Yes.
Okay.
First of all, I want to thank you all for signing up as ethics commissions. I am a civil grand jury that investigates government corruptions and government functions. I am also a public employee representing government employees. I have so many complaints about different departments. And today I came here by myself, but you remember I came with a lot of public employees. I filed complaints with public employees for ethics commissions purposely to lose our voice recording, audio recording, and reports about management retaliation. That's the illegal conduct. Ethics commissioners, you have the duty to follow up and investigate. I have not heard back from any of the Ethics Commission the follow-up report that we reported. April 2017 to July 2017, I, Ellen Lee Zhao, brought 5 public government employees to Ethics Commission. We met 3 different times, and we were told someone will follow up with us. Until today, no one follow up with us, except Jeff in here, except Luann in here, making circles. That means our audio tape, our report from 60 employees were missing. That is why I say ethics commissions and ethics commission department, it's useless. There's no government accountability. I am asking you to table something. What are you going to do with the voting frauds we have? It was the Judicial Watch. Sue the hell out of California, include San Francisco, there is more than 75,000 voters need to be removed from our voters' roll. I'm not sure if this is the right commission, but I'm asking you because you are monitoring the public finance. You gave $4.16 million of our taxpayers' money to support discrimination. I came here many times. I was not allowed to come to City Hall. I was not allowed to go to recreational parks, public library, to join the forum that is paid, supported by public money, super PAC, and matching fund. If you're not doing anything about it, I believe the law says you're personally liable for something that I reported to you, but you're not doing anything. Just like when I am a social worker working for public health. If my patient tells me somebody abused them and I do not do something, I am liable for the information. Because I try the best I can to comply as a government employee. Thank you. Do something about it.
Thank you. Okay. Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor? We're adjourned. Thank you.